Good day, folks. David Simpson here again from the Remedy Project, Criminal Justice Realm, here to educate you students and others who are interested in helping folks out with the administrative remedy process within the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Here at the Remedy Project, we advocate on behalf of those who are incarcerated using that process. And in order for you to do that, you have to have an idea, a concept of what they're going through, right? You can't make solid arguments or about what a person is going through or suffering in prison if you've never been inside a prison, if you're not there to witness some of the things, because sometimes prison has a whole nother language. A lot of times like its own dialect and lingo, and it could be a little bit complicated and difficult for folks who are on the outside to understand. You would have had to do a lot of time with someone incarcerated and they're telling you the stories, and for you to have a good sense of what's going on, and even then a whole lot of times you don't get it. But there's always been a resource available to those who are incarcerated that those of us who are on the outside are not familiar with and don't use. And that is the Prison Handbook, the Admission and Orientation Handbook that the Federal Bureau of Prisons created to inform folks who are incarcerated of what their life is now going to be like and what is expected of them. That is the primary reason this book was put together. However, this book is much more than that, especially to us on the outside, because with this handbook, you can look at what is expected of an incarcerated person, see what their life is supposed to be like, and then based on what you're hearing and what the information you're receiving, determine whether they are being taken care of to that standard, holding thereby you could hold the staff accountable for not meeting the standard that this book requires. Now, mind you, the staff uses this book off the chain against those who are incarcerated. When they are providing them an incident report and or ticket, writing them up for violating a rule or something, they quote it. They say, "Oh, you violated this rule, and you should have known better because it's in the handbook." Right? You're supposed to know because it's in the handbook. But if you remember in the introduction video, I told you that this handbook is discarded the majority of the time, and or if it's also on the prison computers. But folks don't go looking for it or look it up, and they don't read it. Handbooks. Every institution has one, slightly adjusted for that institution, and yeah, and it's a very valuable tool to know what's going on. All right, so I am here just to introduce you to this book and introduce you to the sections that you should be paying attention to. It is my hope that everyone who's interested in assisting folks who are incarcerated with administrative remedies read this a minimum of once, a maximum of 3 times. Why? The purpose is not for you to learn this and memorize it. The purpose is for you to get familiar with it and what is it, and have a familiarity with this book, so that when you hear situations, folks reaching out to you and telling you about certain situations and so on and so forth, you could then come to this book, go to their prison administration book, handbook, and you could find it on the Federal Bureau of Prisons website, and look at what is expected of the prison and of the incarcerated person, and see what needs to be done and see if you could help. And you'll have a very good idea of what you're talking about, what you're addressing. right? So it's very, very important for folks who are interested in helping others in prison who deal with this book. I'm going to address the word on top, inmate. You're not going to hear me reflect on that when I'm reading. I'm going to, instead of saying inmate, I'm mostly going to say incarcerated person. That's because here at the Remedy Project, we understand and we know that staff usually uses this word in a derogatory manner against most folks who are incarcerated. So we're going to avoid that, right? Yeah, and especially with me, I might be triggered. I might be triggered. You never even know. You know what I mean? Tiger, inmate Simpson. I'm just like, yeah, what just happened to Simpson? Well, Mr. Simpson, what is it, Simpson? No, they have to call you inmate Simpson to make sure you know that you're an inmate. It's a new word for slave. All right, so I'm introducing you to this book, right? So, Inmate Orientation Handbook, right? It should be called Incarcerated Persons Admission and Orientation Handbook as far as I'm concerned. All right, so here in the introduction, the book tells you why it is created and or provided, and I told you why it mainly it is for the purpose of introducing the incarcerated person to the prison system. This book is given to them uh, immediately upon entry, um, and usually discarded rightfully after. If you want to know why, go back and take a look at my video, the introduction video, very first video of this training course. All right, so that's what you will find there, but I'm skipping over that. So like I said, I'm taking you to the most important parts of this book and focusing on those. Orientations happen within 28 days, right, of a person arriving at this facility. Staff will do a orientation. At an orientation, incarcerated person sees um, all of the staff that is important in a prison. So a warden would show up at the orientation. The warden, one of the AWs, assistant wardens, will show up. Um, your captain, senior members of every other area, the kitchen, religious services, education, and so on and so forth. And of course, by then the incarcerated person knows who his unit team is, but they would also, those members also supposed to show up at that orientation also. And at that orientation, this is where the incarcerated person gets the majority of information, the do's and the don'ts, and explanations of what's going on in the prison and how things are supposed to happen and go. Unfortunately, there is no deep uh, how to do's on the remedy process. As far as I'm concerned, it's mentioned in the handbook because there is so much more to this and to doing administrative remedies properly that nobody really gets full training. So I was trained to do administrative remedies by my mentor, Gary Opala, right? You just couldn't read it and do it well. And then if you want to get to my level on how to get around the hindrances of the remedy process, well, that that takes a lot of time and a lot of back and forth, studying staff and studying the hindrances and studying the remedy process and figuring out how to get around stuff. All right, so that's a whole, yeah, you'll never get that in the handbook, not even in the actual program statement. All right, but let's move on. Classification teams, unit teams. This section here is one of the most important sections to an incarcerated person and to us, whoever is trying to do or help them with remedies on the inside. Knowing their unit team. You must know their unit team and what is their responsibilities, right? So the unit team is a group of staff members led by the unit manager, who is responsible for everything pertaining to that incarcerated person while they're staying on the unit. So the unit is the place that they are living in. Some, like in the mediums and pens, you can picture a big bird cage with a bunch of small bird cages in it. with a big space, a big outdoor space, something like a chicken coop. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but a chick or a chicken pen. You have a lot of boxes on the inside, and then where the chicken it goes into that dark space. The bunch of different chickens goes into that dark space, and then they could come out into the open area and feed. It's like that. Very much like that is what a unit looks like. And so it's a big cage with smaller cages, which is the cells that folks would be housed in. And then you have dorm rooms, which is a big open area, and you have cubicles. Um, where folks would be staying at. You could have cubicles or just bunks, just double bunks all over the place, or lined up in rows. And that big open space is called all of that. These are the different types of unit. And the unit team is responsible for everyone on that unit. And so in a prison, you could have up to about 20 or more so units, I would think, depending on the size of the prison. And each unit and would have anywhere from about a minimum of 20 people to a maximum of let's say 150, possibly even 200 on a unit. Sometimes it all depends on the prison, right? And so these staff members are now responsible for all the incarcerated persons on that unit. Right? And so the main person responsible for everyone on that unit is the unit manager. Well, all right, so let me say this. The warden is the person responsible for the entire prison. He is the head honcho, or she is the head honcho of the prison, that individual. So they're responsible for everyone, all the staff, all the incarcerated folks, everything, the facility, right? But the unit itself, where these folks are housed, the unit manager is the main person, right? So unit manager runs the unit. The unit manager is responsible for how the folks live on that unit, and their paperwork and everything, whether it's getting done on time and so on and so forth. So the unit manager is the individual responsible for the entire unit and every person on that unit and how their living conditions are. The case manager, you look at the case manager as an assistant to the unit manager, specifically assigned the task of dealing with all the incarcerated person's paperwork. Right, so if an incarcerated person is trying to get a transfer, when it comes to their what they call in prison unit teams, or unit reviews, to see whether they have had good behavior, whether they are programming and stuff. Case managers are responsible for that. Transfers, release, putting in the time to go to the halfway house, all these things, anything paperwork, the case manager is the one responsible for that, or does that job for the unit manager. All right. Then you have the correctional counselor. The correctional counselor is the person that is responsible for everything else pertaining to that individual. For instance, if that person wants an administrative remedy form and or needs some kind of question about that process, they're supposed to go to the correctional counselor for the forms and or for that information. Unfortunately, correctional officers, and I'll start informing you of how horrible things are off the rip, usually do not always abide by the rules and or regulations. They withhold it. They tell them, no, you can't get it. Tell them, oh, you could only get one at a time. To tell them all types of nonsense sometimes. But back to the story. But the correctional counselor is also responsible. So if there is no cleaning supplies, the correctional counselor is responsible for providing that so folks can clean their units or their cells. The correctional counselor is responsible for making sure the incarcerated persons have the clothes or prison wear, boxers, tees, socks, bed linen and stuff like that. to make sure that they have it, to make sure it's washed, to assign jobs, and so on and so forth, right? So case manager does most things paperwork, correctional counselor does mostly everything else, right? Unit secretary. The unit secretary is someone who rarely comes in contact with folks who are incarcerated unless they're doing overtime working in a different position. Other than that, they're usually doing the job of preparing the paperwork for folks to be released back to the street and or to their halfway house, right? And so you don't see the unit secretary coming up in a bunch of issues. That's rare, all right? So I've done remedies 9 of my 10 years in prison, and I've never had to do a remedy on a unit secretary. They just stay out of the way. They just do their paperwork, and that's it, right? An individual usually only sees the unit secretary, like I said, when it's time to get work to go home. Other than that, the unit secretary can say, oh, well, that's not my job, so I don't have to help you with it, right? And same thing with the unit counselor, the case manager, right? So an incarcerated person, if they need to know something about their paperwork, what's my classification level, they will go to the case manager. If they want to know their classification level and they went and asked the counselor, if the counselor wanted, the counselor could look it up and tell them, right? But the counselor could say, well, it's not really my job to look at that and tell you. Why don't you go look for the case manager? And vice versa. If the person addressed the case manager and said, hey, I need some remedies, or I don't have cleaning supplies, the case manager could say, hey, it's not my job. You need to go talk to the correctional counselor. And there's nothing that the incarcerated person could do about that, because these individuals both have their responsibilities, right? However, if they approach the unit manager, it doesn't matter what they want. If they approach the unit manager, that person is ultimately responsible for all of that. The unit manager is responsible for ensuring that the person gets it. But the unit manager most likely, however, would say, go to the case manager or go to the counselor to get that done. They're assigned to take care of that for you. But if one of them is not there to do their job and the unit manager is around, the unit manager could definitely take care of it. He's not, that person is not going to be able to say, it's not my job, it's not, I can't help you with that. All right. Unit officer. The unit officer is not really a member of the unit team. The unit officer switches from time to time. There is a unit officer for every shift. So you got the day shift, the evening shift, and the overnight shift. And each shift is going to have a different unit officer. And that all unit officer might be on the unit for a minimum of 2 weeks, depending on the shift change, on rotation, and could be there for up to a month or two, depending on the locations, even longer, because of seniority and stuff. But they're not really unit team. They're just there to supervise the unit. They're like the enforcer, the police on the unit, as folks would say. They're there to make sure you're not doing anything wrong, like nobody's trying to escape. And if there's an emergency, to take care of it, and so on and so forth. That's what a unit officer is for. All right. Communications, of course, there's communications on each unit, phones, computers, through links. I'm not going to focus, stick on that. I'm going to scroll through and go to the most important stuff. However, again, I am just taking you to areas of this handbook that you need to pay attention to, that you need to familiarize yourself with. So you should read these actual sections, but I'm explaining it to you in regular common terms as much as I can, breaking it down so that you get a good sense. You're getting a double hit of it, but you need to be reading these sections. And the sections that I don't focus on, you could skip. When you read through once, that's it. You could skip them after. But the whole thing is that you'll be familiar with this document and be able to go to where you need, right, when the time comes. Town hall meetings is something that the unit team usually calls, for folks to come and get information. Treaty transfer for none, I'm not going to cover that. You usually don't see issues on that, so I'll move foreign consular stuff. I'll, I'll skip over that. Sanitation is, they tell you, see here, you first thing you see here, it's the incarcerated person's responsibility to check. This says her room immediately after being assigned to their and report all damages to the unit officer and correctional officer. Listen, this stuff, this is something else. So imagine you come into the prison for the first time. You never did time before. They put you in a cell or in a unit, and it's your responsibility to check all the equipment out, to check the iron bunk out, to check the lockers and go underneath there and pull it and make sure there's nothing hidden and stuff. I mean, come on. These people are funny. No one does that, right? But if you're seasoned, if you're there a long time, you're doing, time in prison for a long time, you get a sense that, hey, folks hide stuff and break stuff, and you don't want to be wrongfully accused of it, because this is what this is designed to do. This is set up to be able to accuse individuals of stuff that is wrong in a cell and punish them for it. But if you're there a long time and you have a sense of that and what's going on, seasoned folks, seasoned incarcerated people will go get into a cell and check it and make sure that there's nothing hidden and stuff. But that's what they require of you, right? Personal property limits, they have limits on that. Storage space, there's limits. There's going to be a time or two where a person is going to tell you, hey, they took away my storage bin, or I don't have enough space or something. They could address that, and the information is here. Clothing. Clothing is something that is usually addressed, but it's institutional clothing mostly. Folks clothing from the streets is usually taken away. Whatever you come there with is usually taken away. And they claim that if you don't send it home, if you don't pay to send your own clothes home, that they would donate it. Well, they're right, they donate it to other incarcerated persons and to other staff. I've never heard or seen where these clothes supposedly go. But if you check the staff members, they got a lot of good clothes and shoes and stuff. Them and their family members and other incarcerated folks have some of the good stuff, hidden in their stuff that they could take home afterwards, or walk around with as contraband on the units. Because, yeah, just no, donate, no. All right, please. If they donated, they're donating the trash, but they're keeping the good stuff. And that's a mistake that folks make all the time. Is they go to federal prison, they'll buy shoes, they'll buy an expensive shoe, an expensive sneakers and clothes, and go to federal prison looking all good and spiffy, thinking that folks, when they get there, folks are going to see them and think they're somebody. But no, from the time you enter those doors, they take all of that stuff. The first thing they do is strip you of all of that stuff, violate you, and then, well, I said violate you, but dehumanize you is what I really should say, and then, put you in prison gap. And yeah, so no one sees all that expensive stuff. That shoes that you bought to go to prison is taken away. Brand new shoes, and an officer or their family or somebody else is running around in your shoe that you spent all that money for just to go to the prison and get in the door. Nobody else sees it, but that's what folks do. All right. So this section here covers that. It's going to talk to you about that. You might see an incident report on that once in a blue moon. commissary, special purchase items. You hear about stuff like that every now and again. Letters, books, magazines. This gives you the rundown on that. Legal materials, it tells you about that. Hobby craft materials, folks are allowed to make stuff and have hobbies within the prison, so they tell you about that, and so all that other stuff. Jewelry, again, they're not supposed to have jewelry, so you don't see a lot of incident reports on that. Smoking is absolutely prohibited. You would have to do a remedy on an incident report for someone accused of smoking, but an incarcerated person cannot complain about smoking or even request it because it's just not allowed. Right, so you could forget about that. Quarters rules, right? This this part here, I want you to pay attention to uh, seriously, because what you see here is the prison system explaining to the incarcerated person, not just getting it, that you are no longer a free person living a life on the streets. This part here makes sure that every incarcerated person understand and knows that they are in prison and that their life is now different and that they now have to live by a certain different set of rules and or standards. And they point it out clearly here. You are no longer a human being. Let's say you are now to them a slave, and this section here explains what slaves go through. And if you have a problem with me calling folks who are incarcerated slaves, take it up with the Constitution. In this, they'll tell you all of what is expected. So all beds are to be made daily in a prescribed manner. If a cell room is not acceptable, disciplinary action will be taken. So in other words, if you get up in the morning and you don't make your bed by a certain time, and I'm not going to call it a bed, right? I don't know why they call that bed. They should just stick with bunks, because no one in prison is sleeping on a bed unless you're in a medical department or something. Everyone is really sleeping on bunks, a sponge with on top of iron or on top of concrete and stuff like that. These things can't be called beds. I don't think it should be called beds, but you get the picture. Yeah, if you don't make that up, if you don't dress that up in a particular way, sometimes they have a picture of how exactly they want you to make it, military style and stuff like that. And if you don't do it, even if you make it up, but you don't make it up like the way they want, the staff could get you. Staff could write an incident report, or write them a ticket for that, right? And stuff like that. Folks who are incarcerated will say it's petty, but they can get away with that, especially if the staff member doesn't like that incarcerated person. They walk up in their cell and their bed is made, but not made the way that the unit picture says it could be made. Oh, they write them an incident report quick, you know, and that incarcerated person has to eat that. There's nothing they could do about it, right? And it tells them here, this breaks down here everything that they are supposed to do. And so, yeah, I want you to read this yourself. You will see what it is they go through. You're told when to wake up, right? You got to wake up by 6 a.m. You got to get out to work probably by 7. Some folks actually have to get up for work earlier than that, and so on and so forth. So, you got to be back by a time that, this covers a lot. So, exchange, when you exchange your laundry, how you exchange your laundry. Um, yeah, when you go to the store, which is the commissary, this stuff covers that. Right? It gives you an idea here in this section on how they spend and how to send them money and stuff like that. You usually don't get a lot of remedies on this particular program on money coming in and out. It is not common to get remedies on stuff like that because that system works a certain way, and it seems to work fine. I have not done remedies on that. The True Link system, it's the communication system. You could read this and understand. the only complaints that you might get is that staff, their officers who are assigned to randomly listen to the phone calls of the folks who use incarcerated folks using the phone system, and sometimes they would cut a person's call off if they don't like how the person is conducting themselves on the call, cursing too much or yelling at someone or whatever. And if the person has an issue and is reaching out for help and telling someone about that, that staff member will usually cut their phone call off too. You're not supposed to do that for that one, but they'll do that. All right. Yeah. But other than that, and so you might get a complaint about that, a person wanted a remedy about something like that, but that is not often. Video visiting is something that's in this prison. It's not in most prisons. So yeah, you could take a look at that. This particular prison folks might have a remedy on that, but I doubt it. Like again, like I said, most of the communication systems usually work well, and you don't have a problem with it or have to do remedies with it. However, the mail, like they call it the snail mail, the postal service, however, that, yeah, you got a lot of remedies to do on that. Folks are complaining about that all day long. All right, so I'm going to skip through a lot of this stuff that has to do with the system because there's not a lot of remedies that have to be done on that. Incarcerated person attire. So again, they tell you how to dress, right, for everything. And this is, of course, dressing on how to, when you're doing your video visits. So everything, they're controlling your life on every single thing. Open house hours, right? So here they tell you when you could go to see staff in different locations for different things. This could be a headache, but it's not something that you're going to do a lot of remedies on. That would stuff would be considered minor. An incarcerated person, for minor stuff like that, let's say they're trying to see a person at an open house time, and that person didn't want to see them, was mean and chased them away. Unless this is something that happens often or too much, the incarcerated person is not going to request a remedy be done on that situation, because the retaliation or the fear of retaliation is going to outweigh such stuff, right? Such stuff will be considered minor. Counts. You would see when you go through this section here called counts. This is where the BOP, the Federal Bureau of Prison, keeps track of those who are incarcerated, everyone who is in their prison system, and they do these counts at intervals of time, as you would see here. And I would tell you that you're not going to see a lot of remedies on this because the prison system takes their counts extremely serious. They don't play with their counts, and so incarcerated persons understand that, the majority of them, and try to avoid doing anything or causing any problem for these counts, because when they get incident reports, this is an easy incident report that is going to be very hard to move, right, to challenge and have removed from your file. So they usually don't play with that. So you're usually not going to see incident reports on that. Call-outs, control movements, it's very few and far in between. You're going to see a remedy on that. Contraband. This is an important space you want to read through. Contraband is very important. Folks are going to get incident reports because they have stuff, even prison clothes altered and changed. It becomes contraband. Sometimes officers take away an incarcerated person's stuff and don't follow the rules on contraband. In order to seize something from an incarcerated person, it must be considered contraband, and thereby for them to seize it. And so you have to, this section here is important because you're going to get remedies on this stuff. and you're going to have to challenge it. And you need to know what contraband is and where the rules on contrabands are. There's a section in one of the program statements on contraband on how to deal with that, which is important. You're going to learn later on in the later videos on how to search and find these different program statements, and to be able to use them. Right? Shakedown. What is a shakedowns? Shakedowns are usually or is simply where an officer is allowed to stop an incarcerated person, um, or come to their unit or cell and conduct a shakedown or a search, right? So, and this is allowed, and there's nothing that the incarcerated person can do about it usually. Um, it's a rule that's well written into the policy. A staff member could see you walking and just call you, hey, and just do a random patch search, right, of the person's body. Um, that's called a shakedown um, of the individual. They could do a strip search of that individual, also take them to a certain place where those are supposed to be conducted, with permission of a lieutenant and stuff, and they can do strip searches that way also. Dehumanize you again. They feel like it. They feel like you got something, on you. They're allowed to do that. That's shakedowns of the individual. And then you have shakedowns of the cells, cubicles, and or units. And so what does that look like? Or the unit officers that I spoke about earlier, usually that person does, random shakedowns of you cells or cubicles on a unit while they are there. I think they're required to do a minimum of two per shift or per day or something like that. And they would go into a person's unit or their cell or cubicle and search their bunk under the bunks, and they go through their personal stuff and so on and so forth, looking for contraband or for stuff that they shouldn't have. All right, that is also a shakedown. If the person is in the cell, they'll tell them, get out, come out, and and they'll go in and shake it down. A lot of times they leave a mess for the incarcerated person to come and clean up, and that is not supposed to be so. They're supposed to, whatever they take apart, they're supposed to put it back properly, but they usually don't. Um, and again, it's not something that incarcerated folks usually want to spend the energy and the time to address on a remedy, because you know they it's not worth it for the retaliation. But if they go shake down the wrong person's cell, or unit, or cubicle, and they take something that they're not supposed to take, or and stuff like that, the person will definitely want your assistance with a remedy. All right. Shakedown of a unit usually happens with a majority of officers. The guys or gals would be hanging out on a unit, whatever they're doing, and then you will just see a bunch of officers just run up on the unit, get down, just kind of they carried out all crazy, and you got to lie down on the ground or don't move, freeze, that type of thing, and they'll come and they send everybody to one location, and then they'll start doing body shakedowns or body searches, and then they will go to the each cell in the unit, and they'll turn the entire unit upside down looking for whatever it is they're looking for. And and anyone who's found with contraband or anything that they're not supposed to have, a lot of times they get incident reports after such a shakedown on a unit. Right, so there you go. You know what a shakedown is. And this is why you come through here to get a sense of what's going on. You need to know these things, because when folks reach out to you to complain that officers shake down their unit or their cell and took their stuff, and you wonder, what the hell? What do you mean they shake it down? What, did they hold your locker and shake it? You know what you're talking about. Shakedown, right? So that's what it is. Now you know, right? Drug surveillance, alcohol detection, that stuff is, you're not going to see remedies on that. Um, Unicore, you're going to see remedies on Unicore. Unicore is the prison slavery job section. They pay you a little bit more. Well, actually, just being in prison is more slavery than the Unicore. All right, so let's call the Unicore job program a little bit more privileged slaves. So they pay you a little bit more, um, you know, and yeah, and look. See how much a person gets paid in prison? All right. Yeah, it says grade one, 1.15, $1.15. All right. That's per hour. And you're complaining about your minimum wage wherever you're at. Now, this is slavery, right? This is 92 cents, 69 cents, 46 cents, or 23 cents an hour. All right. And trust me, Unicorn incarcerated persons get paid more than everybody else on in the prison. So yeah, what does that tell you? Slaves. That's why they call you inmates. The new word for slave. I keep telling you, learn it, get it, figure it out. Yeah. All right. Financial responsibility program. I'm going to skip through that. Food service. That tells you about the food service, what's expected. I'm gonna, you know, again, and you got to be looking at this when you read this. You're looking at it and reading it and going through it from the perspective that you should actually look at it at like this is you. You're incarcerated and you're looking because it's telling you. This year is telling you what food service is going to be like at this facility, right? It's telling you what the education department is going to be like. Right. So in the education department, folks are required to have, if you haven't didn't have a GED on the outside, you're required to obtain one within prison. And if you don't get into the GED program, which is probably the only valid program that prisons have, if they're running it like they're supposed to, um, and I'm talking about the prison itself providing, not outside institutions providing, like college programs and stuff like that. That's not what I'm talking about. Prisons themselves don't provide any real good programming except for the GED program. And if an incarcerated person doesn't have their GED and don't get into this program, they lose good conduct time, and sometimes the GED program is not run well or it's not functioning properly, and they will still take away the incarcerated person's good conduct time, and you will see remedies. Folks are going to want your help to challenge this. Hey, the program is not running properly, or I couldn't get in. And so why would they take away my time if they know that they're the ones that are causing the problem? It's not me. I want to do it. Or there's no one to teach the program, so I can't go. Or I have to work, and I can't go at that time. All types of stuff, and they start getting incident reports and or losing their good time for this, and yeah, they're gonna want remedies. So understanding that part there is important. All right, so it tells you if you have the high school diploma here, uh, what is expected of you. So I'm gonna breeze through all of this real quick because it's a lot of stuff, a lot of programs that they talk about that they have in prison. Some of them are, just good for educational purposes for the person to know, but doesn't really do much. Like for instance, in prisons they have a parenting program that they kind of force everybody to take. You go and learn how to be a good parent. Even if you were a good parent before you got to prison, you still gotta learn how to be a good parent again. Right? Religious services. I'm gonna stop on this section here. Religious services is a place where you're gonna see a lot of remedies requested. Why is that? Because most religions, most religious folks who are in prison do not get the sufficient amount of materials that they need for them to practice their religious practices adequately and sufficiently. They are denied a whole list of things when it's time for their feast and their festivals and their holy days. Um, Staff members just don't take this stuff seriously. They don't care. Even the chaplains, I would tell you, the majority of them don't care unless unless the person or the individuals are Jewish. You hear that? Let's do Jew. The Jewish community has an outstanding organization called Aleph, which advocates on behalf of the Jewish community within the prison system. And they do a wonderful job of protecting their citizens or their community in the prison system. They will call a warden, and they Aleph made connections with these folks. And so when their community is not getting what it needs, they will reach out to wardens and or the regional office or whoever, whatever connections they have, and complain quickly, get on staff, and staff would make sure that whatever that issue is corrected. It's a great system they got set up. Um, I wish we at the Remedy Project could emulate it, but we can't because what we do is a little bit different. Staff don't want no remedies done, and so they don't want to connect with us. They don't want to hear what we got to say. They're going to avoid anyone who's helping folks do remedies because you're exposing them. You're airing their dirty laundry, right? So yeah, that's not going to happen. But that Jewish community takes care of their folks, and they get the majority of what they need all the time. And every other religion suffers to some extent. They probably get, I would say, and this is me being kind and generous to the chaplains of the prison system. I would say they give every other religion 50% of what they supposed to get and or deserve. The rest is held back for budget reasons and or given to others on preference and all types of stuff. I promise you, I know. Um, I at Beaumont Low, there was a chaplain called Chaplain Edwards, who was a really great guy who wanted to make sure everyone get everything that they need. He wanted to provide everything for every religion. He believed in that. And his supervisor, his superior, I can't remember his name, but this dude will shut down Chaplain Edwards every time he tried to get something done. He will shut him down and make sure that he could not provide the incarcerated persons with the things they need. Man, it was horrible. That guy, and they were both Christians, and even the Christians couldn't get the full extent of what they needed, right? At Beaumont Low, at that time, even the Messianics and Jews suffered a little bit. That prison was horrible at that time with religious service. The only good thing going on at that prison at that time when it came to religious services was Chaplain Edwards. Other than that, it was just horrible. And then you go to other prisons, and if the chaplain is Muslim, the Muslim chaplain might provide things for his community. His community might get, let's say, 80% of what they need, and every other community would suffer. Or let's say every other community but the Jews. Because Aleph made sure that they get their stuff. Yeah, so you're going to get folks complain all the time about religious services. There's always an issue about religious services. And so as the Remedy Project, becomes known, and more for doing remedies and helping folks out in the system, they're going to flood us with requests for help. Religious services is going to be within the top 10 on that list of reasons why they need help. Okay, so next, psychology services. You're going to get remedies these days on psychology because folks are starting to understand that their mental health is not being taken care of properly. They're not getting the right medication. Sometimes they're diagnosed with one thing outside by professionals, and they'll get inside the prison, and the prison psychologist will die. No, that's not what it is. You're overdiagnosed, or they'll just ignore their stuff and downplay their situation. Not all of them. I'm not trying to make it seem like all staff are horrible. I just told you about Chaplain Edwards. He was a wonderful guy. It's a great dude. Uh, and he hated seeing folks taken advantage of. But at the end of the day, he didn't. There was nothing. I would say there's nothing he could do. He was not the type of dude to go against the grain. But he did not inflict pain on incarcerated folks. He did not do that. Some psychologists, I don't know what's going on with them, but you're going to get complaints for remedies on these folks because they're just not doing a sufficient and an adequate job on behalf of folks who are incarcerated. So, yeah. So knowing and understanding this section here is important, especially the psychologists that is a part of the DAP program, this RDAP program. Oh, they're a mean bunch. I don't get it with them. Right? So I've been in the RDAP program, and I have literally seen psychologists, staff members tell incarcerated persons. Like there was one, my own in the RDAP program, literally lied on an incarcerated person and then was holding him accountable for calling her out on lying on him. And she violated him in that program, and she told him, you were not supposed to speak out or come or challenge me. I am the officer. I am the one here for your treatment. He said, but you lied. He said, yes. She said, yes, I know, but that's okay. I'm not the one who is here to be punished. You are. You are the one who committed the crime. You are here. You are the one who needs corrective behavior. Right? Not me, the psychologist who just lied on you. Right? That stuff is crazy. I don't. People will be bugging out, and I'm telling you, they be bugging out in prison. Yeah, these psychologists at this RDAP program, they go above and beyond with this program. It's horrible. But folks get through it because they want their year off. Yeah, suicide prevention. Okay, this is a serious topic that we usually don't have remedies to address on. You're rarely going to see remedies on suicide prevention because sometimes, or let's say most of the times, in most facilities, when a person says that they're suicidal, you would see the staff go through the right steps and put them in the right secured housing. Sometimes they put them in the wrong place, which is the SHU. Maybe you'll see a remedy on that. But a lot of times they're supposed to have a padded room and sometimes even a small unit for suicidal folks. And they're taken care of. And when they come off of that, they go back to their normal way. You usually again don't see remedies when a person is that mentally in that an unstable condition. They usually not up to doing remedies or anything like that. That's not the first thing on their mind. So yeah, you're not going to see much on that. Um, so yeah, so I'm going to skip through all of that and let's go on down. So the RDAC program, let's talk about, is a residential drug treatment program where folks try to get a year off. They go in there to do that program for the year off, not for drug treatment. But yeah, okay. Few of them really need drug treatment. The majority want that year off, and they'll go through that program. They do whatever these folks tell them so that they can get that year off. And a lot of times staff messes that up for them because they realize that they're not there for the right reasons, they're not there for actual help, or they slip up or whatever, and then staff would punish them, sometimes kick them out of the program completely, and you will get a remedy or two, uh, requests, remedy requests or two for that purpose, because the individual just lost a year of early release. So they want that back at any cost. So they're reaching out to you for remedies for that. You're going to see that from time to time. So having an idea of the RDAP program is a good thing. This Resolve program here is a special program that's held at this particular facility for women. And so I'm gonna run past all of that. If someone had issues with that program and they reached out for remedies, you'll be able to acquire the handbook and go through it and see what's going on, and help that person out. All right. Escorted trips, furloughs, um, it's going outside. Folks sometimes want to go to the funeral of a member that passed on or is about to pass on, and they would request a furlough, or an escorted trip to attend. Um, and sometimes they are denied rightfully and wrongfully, and they will want a remedy. But it's few and far in between, because these folks usually are heartbroken and distraught after being denied, knowing that they're not going to be able to see their mother or their grandfather or somebody who's passing ever again, and or who passed and they're about to be buried, and they're going to miss that. And It's a horrible feeling, and they're in no mood uh, or desire to get in a battle or about that stuff. Sometimes the remedy is not going to solve the issue, because a lot of times when they're looking for an escorted trip or one of these emergency furloughs to do something, um, it's right there, and yeah, your remedy can take months to be addressed. So it's not worth it. So you really don't usually don't get remedies for furloughs and escorting trips based on that stuff, unless it's a remedy like an officer is taking an incarcerated person on an escorted trip, let's say to the hospital, and something happens, the officer treats the person bad or abuses them or assaults them or something like that, yeah, you'll get a remedy, but that's going to be on the remedy is going to be on the assault, but not against the escorted trip or the furlough itself, right? This is one of the things that I'm going to train you guys to do, is how to focus on the right issue. And yeah, so an assault on an escorted trip is an assault case, not an escorted trip case. So this facility, they have a lot of stuff, and this handbook has a lot of information for this facility. The ones that I'm familiar with or accustomed to do not have as much information as this one does. It tells you about medical records. A lot of folks usually want their medical records for grievance purposes or remedy purposes and so on. And they're trying to get it, and staff doesn't want to give it to them, and all types of stuff. So you will get a remedy or two requests for about that. But staff is supposed to give it to them, and they usually do. Sometimes they're just backed up. Prevention Health Program for Women. You see this TB skin test, just so that you know, folks get that, they can't opt out of that at all. They must do that. Okay, must take the TB test. Some of these things you must take, some of them you don't have to. Healthcare rights and responsibilities. This is a very important section because folks, they want remedies for healthcare all the time. It's one of the things that folks are seriously under pressure for within the prison system. And when you're holding staff members accountable, you usually want to point to the incarcerated person's rights. One of the last 11 rights that they have is a right to health care. And this here kind of like breaks down their rights and responsibilities as far as their health care goes. And you can use this to hold staff accountable for failing to provide folks with the right sort of health care that they need. So this is a very important section of this handbook um, to utilize. You should be familiar with it because there's a lot of remedies going to be based on healthcare. Okay, correctional systems management, correspondence. All right, so again, you're going to get a lot of issues with staff at the prison system holding folks' mail. This is about the mail comes to the postal service, not giving the mail on time, taking their original mail and making copies of it and giving it to them. They hate that. All sorts of situations. Staff taking the mail, not putting it out, throwing away their mail. All sorts of things happen. You're gonna get, you're gonna have to do remedies on mail. It's just a serious issue in prison. Um, Hindrance of legal mail. So under special mail covers legal mail, and there are sometimes issues with that also. Trust me, we know the Remedy Project, they hinder our mail also, which is legal mail. They don't care yet, but we'll be making a lot more racket later on, so they eventually will. So this covers all different types of correspondence. You could read through that, but the actual mail is where you're gonna see a lot of the remedies. Let me tell you about visiting a little bit. Um, so every prison location has visiting hours where prisoners could go visit their friends and family. A lot of the times you got staff members. I don't know why the visiting room staff members are usually so mean, but it's almost like they look for the meanest folks in the prison to put them to work on in the visiting room sometimes, and they terrorize these folks and their family members, and they be wanting to reach out for remedies on that stuff, but they don't usually do it because they fear the retaliation of being removed or not being allowed to visit their family member. Um, and so they would rather take the abuse and the unpleasant visit and not cause problems. But I believe that when folks understand and see that the Remedy Project and you guys, your students, are there for them to support them and back them up with remedies, I think you're going to get a lot more remedies based on the visiting system at that time. I think folks are going to take a little bit more chance on reaching out for you to help them with the remedies based on that issue. Because you hear about the legal visits and what is expected only when a person has a serious case in court, an appeal, or is challenging the Federal Bureau of Prisons and probably would win on something, do they really kind of like hinder the legal mail or that person's legal abilities. Um, Other than that, that usually is a targeted thing. Like, sometimes prosecutors say, hey, this guy, give him some problems and give him a headache for me because his lawyer and they giving us a headache. So that stuff happens, and so yeah, I had to defend one guy. His name was Gary McDuff. He was housed at Beaumont and he was doing his appeal, and he was winning his appeal. This dude had some legal experience. He was a businessman, um, and he was doing his appeal and gaining ground on his appeal. And the prosecutors sent one of the crazy staff members of the prison system of Beaumont Low to go mess his stuff up. And his unit team attacked him every time. They were writing him up for nonsense. And luckily he knew who I was and my capabilities. And because he could not stop doing his legal work to challenge these remedies, which he didn't really know much about the system, about the remedy system. Um, but that would have hurt him because he was in current active, legal work, and needing to go to court in a couple of weeks and so on and so forth. And the staff, his own unit team, and other staff members, correctional officers came one time. One correctional officer came and take his legal work, his legal papers, and pour water all over it. They said to destroy this man's legal work. They wanted to give him hell. But what he did was he turned all these incidents over to me, and I wrote them up. I challenged the staff members for what they were doing. I challenged the incident reports that they gave him, and exhausted those remedies. And then, he provided the court judge the evidence because he did the remedies. That was now valid evidence to give to his judge, and the judge cut him a lot of slack and a lot of leeway for the stuff that they did to him to mess him up. So yeah, that was fun. I had fun challenging them and backing them up off of him. At that time, Gary McDuff, I think he won his appeal at the time that I was helping him out, and then he might have went back to trial and lost again. But yeah, that was fun. That was a wonderful experience that I had. Because I beat him up. they couldn't pin him down. I had them. Okay. Remedy project and or students who and or anyone who is interested in assisting folks on the outside with administrative remedies, here is the number one section for you in this handbook. This is the section that you're going to read a minimum of twice, a maximum of 3 times, and be very familiar with it. Also, that comes along with this is the actual program statements. I promise you, when you go through this, it's not going to make you a professional at remedies. What they have here is just introduces you to it, like I am doing. I'm introducing you to this system, but you really need training. You really need to understand the system, the prison system, and the remedy process in order to get this right. This section here on problem resolution covers how an incarcerated person is supposed to raise issues, any issue they might have with the system. All right? And it's very important. And this is what, when I say they're going to reach out to you for assistance with the administrative remedy process, this section here is what that is talking about. And so I'm going to read a little bit of this, right? It says inmate requests to staff member. It says an incarcerated person requests to staff member form BP S148, commonly called a cop-out, is used to make written requests, electronic requests to a staff member. I would tell you that incarcerated folks still use that, but this form and this request process, we are not going to assist with because it is not a part of the administrative remedy process. It's just a request to staff. It has no law or force behind it. When incarcerated folks use this cop-out paper, and a staff member could take it from them, walk around the corner, walk into the office, and they can dump it in the trash, and if they want it, and there's nothing that would come of that because there is no law force behind that. If you said to a judge or court, oh, hey, yeah, I had this issue and I wrote a cop out. Judge would be like, what? A cop? What's that? Judge doesn't even know what a cop out is, right? Because it's of no significance. That carries no weight. And so if you are on the outside, going to assist folks who are inside with issues and addressing issues with the prison system, forget the cop out. It's a waste of your time. And there's, all it's doing is a stall on time, and it carries no weight. It's the same as an incarcerated person just emailing a staff member or seeing them somewhere and saying, hey, I need some help. Could you help me? The staff member feels like it. Yes, they would. And if they don't, they don't. And there is nothing you could do. However, the administrative remedy process, you use that process to raise an issue. The staff wants to help you. Why? Why is it more important, and why do they want to help you? Why? Because that one goes on the record. That process has law and force behind it. And they need to address that as soon as possible. And of course, one of the main reasons why the Remedy Project exists and why I'm training folks to help is because a lot of folks who are incarcerated don't know how to use this process, and staff hinder it the majority of the time because it not only goes on the incarcerated person's record, it also goes on their record. Even if an incarcerated individual, is just simply asking for something from a staff member, and he uses this process, the administrative remedy process, it will go on that staff member's record that is responsible for providing that thing to that person, right? And so a lot of times the staff member now, because this process is going to put that on their record, it comes like a stain or a write-up. Why does the individual have to use the administrative remedy process to get what they need? It means that you're not doing your job, or you're not providing, you're not doing it for the individual. And so therefore they can do this remedy process, and you're seen as you're hindering, and now it looks like you're being written up, the staff member. And so they don't like that. All right, they don't like that, and so they hinder the process to avoid using it, right? But it says here, the BOP emphasizes and encourages the resolution of complaints. The first step of the administrative remedy process is to attempt informal resolution, utilizing the appropriate informal resolution form. See Administrative Remedy and Solution Supplement Attachment A. Okay, what is this inmate resolution form? I am going to cover that with you in more detail later on. But it's a form that you need to fill out. It looks like a sheet of paper. Each prison has one that has a code on it specifically to them, and they can look differently sometimes, but that shouldn't matter. They are all good anywhere. Once you attempt an informal resolution, all staff is supposed to accept it as good, as you would see in the program statement. And that form is to be utilized. I would go more into depth on that. When you attempt an informal resolution, if you're dissatisfied with your response, or you didn't get one, so you're supposed to then take that informal resolution and attach it to what is called the Administrative Remedy BP9 form, and and put your request on that and submit it to the unit counselor, who then submits it to the warden for your situation to be addressed. And it explains in here the time limits and what is expected of that process. So it gives you some of the time limits of the process, right? And what's happening. Again, this is an introduction, and you're going to read it. all right? And so it introduces you, okay, but mind you, it doesn't show you in here what a BP9 or BP8 looks like, and so it just tells you about it, and then one day when you need this stuff, you get it, and it's like, oh, so oh, that's what that looks like. I've never seen this before. How do you fill this out? Well, you don't know, but you're gonna try. Most folks don't fill it out properly, or don't present their stuff properly. Right. However, after the 9, it tells you here that you go to the regional office if you have issues with your response, and then you could go to the central office, which is the end of that process, by which you now say if you have exhausted your process, right? And like I said, there are time limits and stuff. And you can see this is not teaching you how to do a remedy. It's barely introducing you or letting you know that it exists, that this stuff exists, right? I want you to pay attention to this area here. Um, it's very important. It says here, while filing a request for administrative remedy or an appeal BP 9, 10, or 11, the form should contain the following information: statement of facts, grounds for relief, relief requested, right? 3 sections. You would not believe that the majority of folks who file administrative remedies on behalf of others and or for themselves do not even know about this one little section here, and that this stuff here is requested. They just don't know. They don't know. Many of them, like I said, explained to you from the beginning, they never even read the handbook. So they don't know that they're looking for certain things within your remedy. And as a matter of fact, I believe that this layout here of what is expected in a remedy is not in the actual program statement. I don't think I've ever seen it. Of the many times I've looked at a program statement, I don't think I've seen a section where it tells you specifically that a remedy should have the statement of facts, the grounds for relief, and the relief requested. And that's why one of the reasons why I brought you to this section and I'm emphasizing on it is because I know and understand that it's very important. These are 3 things. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to add to them later on in the training program. I'm going to add an opening statement to it, and I'm going to add an argument to it. All right, so you're going to have 5 sections instead of 3. You'll see that in the training as we go along. Sensitive complaints. You won't believe how many people will reach out to you for assistance to do a sensitive complaint. The majority of time, their complaint is not going to be sensitive. This sensitive complaint situation is kind of like if the warden of the facility is doing something bad to you, has threatened you, was involved in assault against you, or something like that. These type of situations is the only situation where your complaint is kind of sensitive. Other than that, the regional office and the central office is going to expect you to take your remedy to the warden. Start at the 8 and the 9 level, or at bare minimum the line 9 level. They are not going to allow you to come to them unless you are saying that the warden is threatening you, or your life is in danger, or something messing with the warden. So if you just disagree with the warden, or if an incarcerated person, let's say, went to the chow hall and the warden was there, and he asked the warden, hey warden, why it is we don't have no hot water in the showers? You run in a dirty facility here. You guys are wicked. And the warden says, responds to him, don't worry about it. You deserve to be here. That's why you're a criminal. You deserve to be here. I need you to get away from me with your ugly self. And let's say the warden uses some obscene language against him and chases him away. That individual now can go and do a remedy saying that the warden disrespected him and cursed him, and didn't want to take care of the showers. That individual who's doing that remedy, 9 times out of 10 is going to want that remedy to be sensitive, to be sent to the regional office. He wants you to help him with it so that he could do it sensitive as a 10 to send it to the regional office. And I'm telling you, it's not sensitive. They're going to reject it and say, give it to the warden, and you would have just wasted time, valuable time. You need to be accusing the warden of some form of illegal act or threatening your life or something. Otherwise, no matter what it is, they expect the warden of the facility to take care of it. So pay attention to that. You're going to get a lot of things for sensitive claims, and just know that many of them do not rise to that standard. General information here about complaints that are of a serious nature being answered in 72 hours. A lot of times they don't even do that. They risk the person's life. It's a horrible thing. Okay, here it tells you the program statement here, which is the administrative remedy program statement that was just covered. All right, 1330.18 administrative remedy program. So that's going to be the very next thing that we cover. The video after this is going to be covering that program, right? Disciplinary procedures. This is what happens when an individual is found doing something wrong. He goes through the disciplinary procedures. What is this disciplinary procedures? This is like a mini court process within the Bureau of Prisons. So what happens? Any staff member could write an incident report, or a ticket, or a shot, as it's called in the prison, against an incarcerated person for not doing something, or for violating a rule, or policy or something. And when that individual writes that, they're like the police officer writing you a ticket for running the red light. Then there is a lieutenant who is supposed to come and investigate that situation, and then read you your rights and determine that whether they want to address that or not informally. If not, it's then passed on. You're given an incident report. With all this done within same 24 hours, you're given an incident report, or your ticket. You're given your ticket by that lieutenant, and then you wait 5 days to address this at your UDC hearing. And after the UDC hearing, if it's a minor situation, it's addressed at the UDC level. If it's a serious situation, it goes to the judge of the system, prison system, which is usually called a disciplinary hearing officer, or DHO. That DHO person is both your prosecutor and judge at the same time. And you have no lawyer. You represent yourself the majority of the time. So it's you, the individual, against the judge and the prosecutor in the prison court system. There is an availability or law, the rule, part of the rule that says you could have a representative, a staff representative. Maybe it works out 1 or 2 times. If a staff member really favors an individual, maybe they're of the same culture, maybe they've known that individual from the outside or something, they would stand up for that person and do the right thing. But that is few and far apart. That does not happen often. I actually train folks with a situation, a real situation where a staff member stepped up on behalf of someone. But like again, it's not often. It doesn't happen often. And so when an incarcerated individual is facing this judge and prosecutor by themselves about this incident that another officer wrote, and it usually doesn't go well unless prepared properly. And so we help folks with this process, the disciplinary process. We also help incarcerated folks with this. And a lot of times we're going to do it with using the administrative remedy process, right? This process of taking care of the BP8, BP9, the 10 and 11, right? So that's what we use to help that individual out in the disciplinary process. So it's very important to read that information and kind of get a sense of what that hearing looks like. In this handbook here, it looks like they're giving you a lot more information than I'm accustomed to seeing on a disciplinary process um, within the handbook. And so, yes, please read it and get familiar because it's definitely going to be a part of your training. You definitely need to know this. I'm going to train you on how to defend folks in this process and how to appeal decisions made against them in this process. So it's very, very important. Special housing unit status, being placed in the shoe. Uh, this is going to be a lot of requests for administrative remedies based on stuff in special housing unit or the shoe. I promise you, it's coming. Detainers is happens when other court jurisdictions or ICE immigration or police departments request that the prison put a hold on you and never let you go, let you be released without you having to deal with them first. A lot of the times, some of these detainers are frivolous or are there and should have been dropped or removed and have not, and they are preventing an incarcerated person from going on a furlough or being transferred to um, a camp or a halfway house, and they're going to reach out to you for administrative remedies to help move these detainers from them, um, right? To help the force staff to look into helping remove the detainers from them. They can also reach out to the outside entity that put the detainer on them and request something saying that the detainer has been removed. But I've seen situations where even that has happened. They've gotten something from the individual saying that the detainer has been removed, and they still wouldn't do it. And the staff at the prison still wouldn't do it. As a matter of fact, on our website, that video of Adolphus Nwodi, he his situation, the remedy that we did for him, was that kind of a remedy that got him released. So he got sent back from the state. The state had a detainer on him. It was no longer on him because the case was finished. And the staff members, you say, no, we're going to keep you till it's time to go home, till your end date, your release date, because you got this detainer from the state and we're not going to let you go. And we did a remedy and helped him bring it to their light attention because they knew that the case was done, but they wasn't going to do it. And we exposed that situation and they released him right away. They sent him to the halfway house, right? So you're going to have remedies on that. Good conduct time when folks don't do the GED, when they get severe violations, incident reports, they're going to lose good conduct time, and remedies are going to be wanted to be done on this. What I'm going to say though, let me backtrack just a little bit. When it comes to good conduct time, detainers and stuff and sentencing computation, issues where staff miscalculate, or the BOP miscalculated the incarcerated person's release date. They're going to want remedies on these type of things almost all the time. Students and other members of the community are going to struggle the most with these kind of remedies. It's the folks like myself and other law library clerks who worked in the law library in the prison system, prison paralegals and or lawyers. They're the ones who have the experience and the knowledge and understanding of these processes that will be able to help folks make the right argument to get that stuff resolved. it's not going to be easy for even some of my best trained remedy writers right now, students, to make or to help someone with those type of situations. It's very difficult because that's like deep in the knowledge of the prison system type of issue. Yeah, so those are going to be hard, but if you get the assistance from an incarcerated person who is knowledgeable on that stuff, you'll do that remedy easily. That person probably just needs to help you with the argument of on those three situations that I just talked about. Halfway house, a lot of times placement in the halfway house, a lot of times the case managers and or the prison is not doing this stuff on time. They're not giving the person the amount of time that they feel like they need to be successfully re-entered into the community. And so you're going to get remedies on this, on the halfway house and being released. Those remedies are going to come all the time. It's going to be in the top 5 remedies that you get requests for. So pay attention to that section. It's definitely going to be needed. Inmate rights and responsibilities, or incarcerated person's rights and responsibilities. Listen, pay attention. How many rights you got? You are a slave. I keep telling you, when you are incarcerated, you become a slave. You only have 11 rights. All right, you only had 11 rights, right? All that other nice rights that you had when you were a free person after your conviction, you will know, and now they call you an inmate, you are a slave. And you have 11 rights. You have the right to be treated in a fair and impartial manner by all staff, and you have the right to health care and that stuff, and a couple other rights. And that's about it. And when you get to number 11, it's over. Pay attention to what the rights of an incarcerated person are. It is useful, and you're going to need this stuff to quote this stuff in your remedies as a part of grounds for relief that you saw in higher up in this book. Prohibited acts. This is sanctions that can be placed against the incarcerated person, usually by way of an incident report, shot, or for you to simply understand a ticket. I think I mentioned it enough times that you get it. If they get an incident report based on anything on this level, on 100 series level, it goes to a DHO. They can lose good conduct time and so on and so forth. This is a horrible situation, and they're going to be reaching out for remedies to help with that. Same thing with the 200 series incident reports. These issues can hurt. Good conduct time and all of that is taken away, and so they're going to want help with that. Okay, and then you're going to get down to the 300 moderate level prohibited acts. These acts are less damaging. A lot of times it's just privileges that are taken away, phone, commissary, visitation, stuff like that. If good time is taken away on something like this, probably 7 days, but that's, I wouldn't say it's rare. I've seen DHOs hit folks, but yeah, but this stuff is not that hard, doesn't hurt that much. You're going to need to know this. You're going to need to be familiar with the 100, the 200, and the 300 series incidents, because you're going to have to defend folks against these charges. So becoming familiar with them is important. There is a 400 series section, but staff does not use it. I have never seen a 400 series incident report written in my entire time being in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So I doubt you're going to see one yourself. Right? So yeah, don't look out for it. Here, it's giving you some of the sanctions that can be handed down because of the different types of shots. The DHO and UDC uses this to sanction folks who are incarcerated. Right. Moving on next, we are coming close to the end. Thank you for bearing with me. Everything, see, attachment C, sexual abuse behavior prevention and intervention, all of this falls under the Prison Rape Elimination Act section. Anything that sexual harassment, sexual abuse, that type of stuff is, you don't have to file an administrative remedy for that stuff. If you go through this section, you would see that any incarcerated person can complain to any officer about such an issue, and they are supposed to report it no matter what to an individual specifically assigned to address these issues. All staff members know who that individual are. They're supposed to shut up and take it straight to that person and have it investigated. Unfortunately, that does not happen the majority of the time. Staff will try to protect their fellow employees. It has happened to me. I've had to defend and or expose a good bit of sexual abuse, sexual harassment by staff during my time with administrative remedies. And I do it with the remedy, but you don't have to do it with the remedy. You know, and simply just go and tell someone, hey, a sexual abuse or sexual harassment act has been committed, and they're supposed to address you to the right person to talk about it, right? So this is a no tolerance issue. They take it very seriously. You could read this if you like, but remedies don't have to be done for this. You could simply, if you're aware, if a person reaches out and says to you, hey, I'm being sexually harassed or sexually abused in prison, you could literally put it on a letter and send that letter to the warden, to the regional director, to the central office. And in this book, like I was just about to say, they have special contact information for special places on this issue. So yeah, this is a serious thing. So it's a part of the handbook. I'm not gonna go through this any further. I'm gonna go back up and stop because the handbook ended right here. All right, and so yeah, folks, thank you for sticking through this walkthrough with me. Again, I suggested that you guys, if you're going to do remedies on behalf of folks, a minimum of 2 reads, maximum of 3. Get yourself familiar. The areas that I mentioned and I walk you through are the important ones, the ones that we're going to see a lot of remedies on. Yeah, definitely important that you take a look at problem resolution section. It's very, very important. Inmate rights and responsibilities is a very important section also. The disciplinary process is an important section. Learning about the unit team is an important section. And getting an understanding of what's happening with folks who are incarcerated, all of that is very important. Please take this seriously in your remedy assistance to folks. You're going to be dealing with this stuff often. All right, so thank you very much for hanging out with us here at the Remedy Project, the criminal justice realm, for putting these videos together for you. We appreciate your support and your will to want to help folks who are incarcerated. Thank you very much. Look out for the next video, which is going to be on the administrative remedy program statement, and then following that, the disciplinary program statement, and then a couple other short videos will follow those. All right, see you guys soon. Thank you for sticking around. David Simpson out.